All right, waiting to connect with Brady Quinn here. I will never not smile, Vic, that the open for Brady Quinn has us just butchering the name of his very popular college football show, the Big Fox Noon Off. The Big Noon Fox Off.
I love it. If we hit him enough times with the wrong name, if they got to the point where, all right, we got to change the name. This is ridiculous. Nobody can get it right.
Or better, next year, Marty's talking to him now. I'm going to ask him, next year, can he just slip one in during the show? Just say, it's great to be part of the Big Fox Noon Off team.
Well, like Mosier did to Lance Cockdale when he called him Jock Landale.
Jock Landale.
If you call it the wrong thing enough, eventually it'll be the wrong thing.
Well, let's talk to Brady Quinn now on the Ramos Law Hotline, and all conversations with Brady are brought to you by Audi Flatirons, Audi Boulder Service, your hometown Audi dealership and proud supporters of the CU Buffs. Brady, we were just saying, I laugh every time we play your open because it's us saying the Big Fox Noon Off and the Big Noon Fox Off. Any chance next year you can slip one of those in? Can you just call it that in the middle of your broadcast next year?
I will do my best. I mean, we always have different names for it, but as you know, people are pretty particular about branding, especially early on. So the higher ups really want you to get it right when you say it. So we can't call it the Big Fox Noon Off, the Fox Big Off, or however you want to put it. We've inserted different words for kick, and you can let your imagination take you wherever you want there.
Well, all right.
It's so funny you say that. I host a variety of pregame shows that I've done over the years. Every single time I'm doing a pregame show, I always seem to forget the name of the show. Like, what's the name of this damn show? And it always comes back to, welcome back to the pregame show. I don't know what else to call them. There's too many names.
Well, I think one of the most hilarious brandings and titles of a show is I think CBS calls one of their NFL pregame shows the other pregame show. Which, I mean, it's kind of great because, like, it was probably amongst conversation, people were like, hey, what's that other pregame show? And they're like, you know what? Let's just call it that because we're not going to be able to compete with the rest. And we'll just use this title, and that way everyone will get it right when they say, what's that other pregame show on CBS? So there you go.
That's so great. All right, we got a ton of ground to plow here, Brady, with the wild card weekend, but all of the coaching changes. My goodness gracious. So you get one after the other. Carroll, Nick Saban, and then Bill Belichick. But I want to ask about Belichick specifically. I think there's no argument from anybody. He is the greatest coach in the history of the NFL. And what's funny to me is there's 7 jobs now that have openings. Is Belichick the favorite, or is he the number one option for any of these jobs if he wants to still coach?
Well, he should be the number one potential option and or conversation. I think if you're one of those 7 openings and you're not calling Bill Belichick to interview him, not just to gather perspective and information from the greatest of all time, then you're clearly showing your fan base, your locker room, your organization, you're not really serious about winning Super Bowls. I mean, in all seriousness, like if you don't talk to a coach who's won, 7 in his career, been to 9 or whatever it was over the course of his time with the New England Patriots, and had the greatest stint we've ever seen in NFL history. If you're not serious about winning Super Bowls and you don't call him to at least interview him and gather some insight in that setting, I think you're just showing your cards that you're just trying to run a business and you're an owner who just wants to make profits and make money off an NFL, because we've seen that the NFL, even with the worst ownership and a bad football team, is still going to be profitable because the NFL just prints money at this point with the TV rights, media deal, the gambling, everything else that's involved. So I would make that case. I think the most interesting team to keep an eye on is Atlanta. They've had previous New England front office executives, and Scott Pioli and Thomas Dimitroff, Arthur Blank, and Bill Belichick are familiar with one another. And that's a team that I think has a lot of the pieces. They're just kind of a quarterback away. The defense was much improved this year. They've got Pitts. They've got London. They've got Bijan Robinson to a running back. It really just comes down to the quarterback. And I think when you look at the NFC South, you'd say no one's running away with it. So I tend to think that that's the one place I look at and go, yeah, I could see it making a lot of sense if Bill Belichick ended up finding a way of coaching or continuing to coach and passing Don Shula's all-time wins record as an Atlanta Falcons head coach.
Can you please explain to me why guys who learned and developed under Bill Belichick never became successful head coaches. You had one. Josh McDaniels was supposed to be his prize pupil. Why didn't that translate?
Well, first off, so there's been 24 now with Gerard Mayo taking over as head coach for the Patriots. Players or former assistants that have gone on to become head coaches in the NFL or college football, which may be even greater than the legacy Bill Belichick will leave as far as what he's done individually as a coach, but just the overall impact at multiple places. I think the hard thing is if you're buying into an assistant or a former player, you're trying to get the next Bill Belichick. And the truth of the matter is there's only one Bill Belichick. No one's going to be able to do what he was able to do, and no one's going to have Tom Brady at quarterback. And so you have, two one-of-ones that you're trying to recreate, and it's not going to happen. I tend to feel like, with every one of the assistants that I played for, and there was Charlie Weiss, I was drafted by Romeo Crennel, I played for Eric Mangini, I played for Josh McDaniels, is they all try to mimic what Bill Belichick did as a head coach, but there's an element of authenticity that I think Bill, behind closed doors in those one-on-one conversations, probably shows that's different than what a lot of these coaches, I think, have an idea of what that looks like. Whereas Bill Belichick one-on-one with Tom Brady or Bill Belichick one-on-one with any of the players is probably different than maybe what those guys imagined. And that's the small part of it that I don't think those coaches ever saw. So go ahead.
Well, what I was going to ask with those guys and that style of coaching, I was just thinking, like in college football and the NFL, I'm sure there's guys that I'm missing. But as far as super strict, my way or the highway guys, it felt like Saban and Belichick were two of the last ones, and they could do that because they had the resume. The only other guy I can really think of that's totally like that, not to say that other coaches aren't strict, but they do have to have some sort of player coach sort of feel to them. It feels like Sean Payton's like the last guy. That's kind of like my way or the highway. You do it the way I want, or you're out. Is that still a thing that you think can recirculate in football?
I think it can if you have success and you win, right? I mean, Sean Payton has a Super Bowl to his credit, so people are more apt to buy in just because of that. I tend to think that it's not so much about having strict rules or high standards. It's more about how you communicate that. We've talked about that before. I think when you try to draw a line and divide and make it feel like you're the authoritarian and the rest of the coaches and players are just kind of along for the ride, it gets hard to get guys to play for you. But that doesn't mean that style is successful either. I mean, Mike Vrabel just got canned, and go find me a player who doesn't love playing for Mike Vrabel.
Yeah,
like every single guy who plays for him loves Mike Vrabel. So it doesn't matter what style you are. You've got to figure out a way of getting the most out of your players and executing and winning the football games. What I was going to go back to saying that I think was unique that Bill Belichick was able to accomplish that a lot of people overlook or they think like isn't important was his singular focus every single week on who they were playing. I mean, this past week 18, he kept getting peppered with questions about his future, and at no point did he let up. And he just said, I'm focused on the Jets. I'm focused on just trying to win this game here in front of me. That's the one biggest common denominator from every one of the New England assistants that I ever played for was they always try to limit distractions. They always try to create a culture and environment that was just focused on the task at hand. I mean, we wouldn't even get advanced calendars as to, hey, what's our bye week look like or what does the off season look like? And that was by design because they want you to stay focused on whatever the case was that week in front of you, that day in front of you. And no one was able to do it better than Bill Belichick. And I think the on to Cincinnati is kind of like the punchline, but that's kind of the world that he lived in for 24 seasons in New England. And I don't think anyone's been able to replicate that, getting that sort of focus and attention from your team on that opponent and that task week by week by week throughout 24 seasons of the NFL season. And again, it sounds simple, but it's way more difficult than most realize to do.
One of the hosts of Big Noon Fox Kickoff, Fox Off, is with us right now. Brady, if you look at what Nick Saban did as a head coach in college football, obviously there's no approaching that, and he suddenly walks away, right? And he said